Hey everybody, welcome back. Ryan Comer here, ICTF USA's Technical Director. This video is going to talk about hand techniques, a couple of hand techniques. The last two videos that we posted were about front snap kick, side front snap kick, and side piercing kick. Today, we're going to be talking about low block and rising block, or in other systems they call it a high block. The reason I'm introducing both of these techniques, high block you won't see until the yellow belt or until you have a student training from high white belt to I think it's high yellow belt, to be honest with you, because when they get their yellow belt, they'll be training from yellow belt to high yellow belt, which is their green stripe, because at that test they're going to be performing pattern dangun, where we see rising block happen for the first time. But again, if you have students that are more advanced, they've probably done rising blocks before. We're going to talk about rising block and low block. The reason why we're talking about both is because they have the same hand preparation. So like I said, rising block will not happen until yellow belt. Low block happens at white belt, followed by what I refer to as middle block, but it's actually a middle section or middle side block with the inner forearm. And we'll talk about that in a minute about forearm inner and outer, because low blocks are outer forearm, rising blocks are outer forearm, and knife hand as well. So we're going to discuss those. Next video is going to drop. We're going to talk about inner forearm block. We've already talked about walkie stance, L stance. After that, the only other video we need to talk about from white belt to high white belt is step sparring, their Holston Sewell, which is their self-defense, and their first exercises, which lead to their first pattern at high white belt. But before we get into the patterns and the exercises, we have to be in, I feel it's necessary to introduce every technique that's going to be seen in those. And the first techniques that are going to be seen is a punch and a low block with a knife hand and a low block with a forearm in the 4 directional exercises. So, and the patterns and exercises are going to be a completely separate video by themselves. I'm not going to combine anything. So it's kind of like the Marvel universe. You know, you got to see that first movie post with the hero, and then you get to see the ensemble together after you've figured out where that hero comes from. You know what I'm saying? So same idea here. We're going to introduce the techniques individually and then introduce the exercises. And let me pause here for a second to say this is just my 2 cents. You run your schools and your classes however you see fit. But I find it much more successful when teaching patterns to look at the testing criteria and say, okay, what are your new hand techniques? What are your new stances? What are your new kicks? And teach those hand techniques and those stances before they learn their patterns. Because in the testing criteria, everything that says new stances or new hand techniques is in the pattern, and it's introduced in that pattern. So I don't personally find it to make sense to teach the pattern first as an introduction to these techniques, because those techniques have to be prepped a certain way, and there's reasons why we do all that, okay? And when you're learning the individual technique, we can understand that, and we can break that down for our students and let them understand the purpose behind the technique before putting it into a pattern and saying, okay, now do it here, and then we're adjusting steps and things like that. It can get less confusing, I believe. That's just me. Take that with a grain of salt if you like, but I've had a lot of success teaching students by breaking it down skill by skill, and then teaching the pattern. But like I said, in your school, you do what you like. That's just something that's worked for me. Okay, so getting into it. So we're gonna start with the low block. Low block is exactly what it is. Low section, anything from the belt down is a low section. Okay, could also be lower abdomen, lower torso is also considered lower section, depending on where you wear your belt. If you wear your belt up here, then lower abdomen is lower section. And technically speaking, we should all be wearing our belt right there, but my belly comes out a little bit, so my belt always drifts down right below my stomach line, which why I'm always tugging on my uniform, because it's weird. Anyway, so moving forward, low block. First and foremost, the blocking hands. Okay, I'm gonna contradict myself here for a second and say that the way I've taught a low block to understand where the block happens, I've taught first, and I use that, my experience from other systems and other martial arts, to direct that to the student, letting them know right up front that After we learn that, we're going to change how we prepare it. They need to understand that because it does prepare a certain way for a specific reason. However, it's designed, the low block is designed to actually not protect the groin. That's a very common misconception. If you do a low block correctly, you notice where we're blocking with our wrist or with our forearm, right? Right here, the bone. That's nowhere near my groin. If I turn sideways, that is nowhere near my groin. My groin's down here. Okay? So if I'm protecting my groin, I just missed my block. So ideally speaking, the low block is designed to protect the lower abdomen and the floating ribs. So you got a front kick or a side front snap kick in like a sparring match, come into your floating ribs, you're up here and someone's kicking you here, boom. Low block is great for that. Okay. Lower section, like groin shots, if you want to block those, I don't suggest it. I suggest getting out of the way. But if you are determined to block that, we do have other blocks that go lower than that, which will help. Okay. So again, very common misconception. The low block is designed to protect the lower abdomen or the floating ribs, not the groin. Okay. So as we prefer, I'm just going to do it in parallel stance. You can teach these in any stance you want. You can do L stance, walking stance. I like to do, you can even have them go sitting stance. This is a great exercise for warm up where we're just blocking, 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 blocking. And they're bending those knees. They're going to burn those quads. They're going to strengthen those legs for kicking. They're going to strengthen those. And it's also a form of flexibility training for the hips. Great exercise. However, that's a lot to think about. Okay. So you have to consider the age of your students. If your students are 5, maybe they can't concentrate on bending their knees and their hands and their low block all at the same time. So maybe they need to come up to a parallel stance. And that's where I'm going to teach from today. Okay. So like I said, excuse me. So again, we can do it from any stance. For the sake of simplicity today, I'm doing it from a parallel stance. So we're just going to talk about, because I want the focus on the hands. So for the focus on the hands, the blocking tool is the outer forearm. If you hold your hand this way, the inside of your body, which is toward the chest, that's the inner forearm. So I tell people the thumb side of our wrist, where our thumb is, that's the inner forearm. Outer forearm is the pinky side. Okay. For those of you 4th degree and higher that have the stripes here, where the stripe is, that's the outer forearm. Where the thumb is, that's the inner forearm. So we're blocking this way, inner. For our blocks here, boom, inner forearm. For our blocks here, we block down, hit here. That's outer forearm. Okay? Outer, inner. I hope that makes sense. Again, explain it to your students any way you want. I'm explaining it to you how I've come to understand it after many years of struggling to explain it to students. That's why I get very wordy when I explain it this way, because newer instructors who may not know the system, I don't want you guys to struggle like I did. So I'm trying to help you guys out along the way. I hope that's okay. Anyway, so we know the blocking tool is the outer forearm, okay? It starts at the shoulder, and then it swings, it comes downward and stops at the inner, well, if you're in a parallel stance, it's going to stop kind of like in your June B. Okay, you take one hand away and chamber it, that's a low block in June B. Bring it out a little bit further. Okay, if you're in a walking stance, it's the inside of the quad right here, that inside leg. That's where the weapon stops. You notice that my hand didn't drift out to my leg here. It stopped here. Okay, now let me pause for a second, because I've had this question, and I know what some of you are thinking. Well, if your leg's in front and you're blocking downward, aren't you going to redirect that attack into your leg? That is a very good question. I would say, if you're blocking correctly, no. Here's why. And it's hard to show you when I'm by myself, so I hope that my words are clear. When you block, it is a quick motion and a sudden stop. Okay? That sudden stop, if there's a target here, will generate force into that target and make the target redirect further. Okay? So if you have like a front stamp kick coming at you and you block as hard as you possibly can, boom, right? If you do that block correctly, that foot should bounce off of your blocking tool and go really, really wide. By the time it gets full extension, which is where it would be hitting your leg, it's already past your body. I hope that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, please leave a comment, and then I'll find someone to do a video with me, and I will clear that up. I will show that how that works. Okay. But again, the force that you generate, we're not just here, it's fast. Here. Okay. That's your block. Once you stop, that generates force into the attacking tool, which bounces and veers it off into space, right? So again, if the front snap kick is coming, for example, by the time that kick reaches full extension, you've already blocked it. It's going to reach full extension over here, not on your quad. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, but let's talk about how our hands prep. So it starts at the shoulder here. Okay, the other hand is not just hanging out, right? You can start this way, and I've done this with very young children, where I've said, okay, touch the ear, come down. Touch the ear, come down. Touch the shoulder, come down. Touch the shoulder, come down. And then we just work the block in the hands, 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 the block in the hands. Okay? In patterns, they have to cross. Okay? And I've taught this cross everywhere from here, which is technically not correct, to here, which is correct. Okay? But again, younger minds, right? I'm thinking of little children. Adults can get this, and I'll explain this in a minute. Younger kids, this is confusing. So I let them do this, and I change it as they progress. Okay? Like I said, oh no, I didn't. I'm going to post a video about instructing, but if I can teach you anything about teaching, something to make your life a little bit easier as an instructor, simple is better. The simpler you can make it, faster they're going to learn it, and then you can tweak. Okay? A couple things about hand techniques before I get further into the block. Every hand technique, whether it's an attacking technique or a defensive technique, has a twist at the end. That's why we start our wrist this way. If you notice, as I come down in the block right at the very end, if I keep going this route, the back of my arm is going to be the blocking tool. So at the end, I have to twist to get the blocking tool exposed. Okay? So it's a twist down here and then a twist back up. So when we start this way, the other hand crosses in front, palm out. Okay? One way that this was explained to me, and I think this is a fantastic way to explain it, even to adults. Pretend you're wearing a wristwatch to wristwatch. Okay? The face of your wristwatch is on the top of your wrist. If you connect those two faces, now your hands are facing the proper direction. This is fine for very young children. Tweak it to this once they understand. Okay? This is the right way. The reason we do this is new to a lot of instructors. Okay? This is, again, how it was explained to me. The reason we do this, if I have the blocking tool on the outside, and I'm in a situation, and my attacker grabs my hand, and then throws a kick to this side of my body, if my hand's grabbed, I can't block that. This hand coming down won't block. I could probably do something like that, but that's going to be really shady. Okay, if I want to do a low block, that's not going to work. So by positioning it closest to your body with the other hand on the outside, if someone grabs their instinct is going to grab what's closest to them. What's closest to them is the hand I'm not using. So by that standard, now I can still get my block out if this hand is grabbed in a grappling situation. Okay, that's why we cross our hands this way. Every prep does something to that effect. So just remember, the way it was explained to me, you're protecting the blocking tool, which is right now my right hand. So I'm protecting. If I were to do my left hand, it would be on the opposite side. My right hand would be in front. Okay? So, low block again. From here, twist down. This hand, twist to the hip. Okay? At the same time, twisting to the hip, twisting down. So it's this. Okay? That's the slow version. Deep breath in, fast breath out. There's your low block. Okay? Now, it isn't in the encyclopedia. In encyclopedia volume 2, I believe it's page 135, somewhere in there, where it talks about attacking and blocking tools. It is stated by the founder of Taekwondo, General Choi Hung-hee, that unless specified otherwise by the instructor, all blocks start with the left hand, all attacks start with the right hand. I'm going to reiterate that when we go into right and left 4-directional punch. But but the whole exercise will start attacking tool right hand, blocking tool left hand. You'll see that later on. So a great exercise to be when they're in Jun B is step back and block, low block, boom. Step back and block, low block, boom. Step back and block, low block, boom. And then they can attack forward, whatever, okay? Or they can block forward. But the first motion should be left hand. So if they're going to advance forward, left hand on the defense, right hand on the attack, okay? So that's low block. It's very simple. I know I'm getting kind of wordy, but I'm trying to be thorough. Rising block or high block is the exact same hand prep. Blocking tool on the inside, protected with the other hand. Blocking tool on the arm itself is the same, outer forearm, okay? And it comes straight up. Now, if you notice my hand here, I'm going to take my other hand away. If you notice my blocking hand, the tool that I'm using, which is the bone of, or you can even turn your hand up and use the muscle if you don't have very strong bones. But if you notice the position of my forehead to where my wrist is, a lot of people do this. They like to bring that elbow out, which puts their hand above the head. That's a no-no if you're doing a forearm block because you're missing the forearms over here. This is to protect an attack coming straight down on top of your head. So if you do this, you just missed, and your hand probably isn't strong enough, you're going to hit yourself in the head, right? You come up here with the forearm, now you got it, okay? The hand should be on the side of the head, the forearm should be over the forehead, okay? I tell younger students, smell your armpit, because otherwise they're over here. You got to get that hand in close, okay? The head should kind of fit in that crook a little bit. They shouldn't be touching the forehead. I've seen a lot of inexperienced students do that. Again, if I turn sideways, I'll show it on the other hand. You should have at least your fist distance between your head and your blocking tool. So it's here. So it comes straight up, okay? It also twists. If you notice, it twists upward, okay? But again, it's done from the shoulder hinge. A lot of students like to bring it outward. They like to go here, which is why it ends up this way, okay? That's a bad mistake. That's a very common mistake that's easy to fix, but it should be from here. That elbow should go straight up. That's why it's called a rising block, because it rises. It doesn't swing. If you swing your arm, it comes out here. If you rise, it puts it where it's supposed to. Okay? Now, let me backtrack. Low block can also be done with a knife hand. I'm not going to get into the details of a knife hand, but with a low block, if you do a knife hand, your arm is more extended. Okay? So with a low block of the forearm, your forearm is bent. With a knife hand, I'm sorry, it's not more extended. It should be actually, well, yeah, it's a little bit more extended because your knife hand can come down lower and hit. So if you go boom, you can go here. So depending on the height of the technique, if you're getting a kick up here, a forearm is probably best. If you're getting a kick down here to the groin or to the inner thigh or to the quad or the hip, a knife hand might be better. Okay, so that's a knife hand here. Because what we're doing is we're trying to position the knife hand or the blocking tool where the attack is going to be. Okay. For a rising block, same idea. If I do a forearm, you can see my forearm is equal to my head. It's above where the area of my body I'm protecting. If I do a knife hand and my forearm's over my head, I'm not using the proper blocking tool. Knife hand, you position the blocking tool, which is the knife hand, above the area you're protecting. Okay, so forearm is here with fist closed. Knife hand, you are going to bring that out just a little bit more and block more here above the forehead with the hand versus having that arm in tighter. Okay, so again, low block, forearm, low block knife hand, here, rising block, here, it rises. That's with the forearm, outer forearm, with the knife hand, here, here, here. See the difference? Here, hand is above the forehead, wrist is above the forehead. Okay, same thing here. Forearm protecting this section. Low or knife hand protecting something a little bit lower down in this section. Okay, that's rising block and low block. I know it got a little wordy. I apologize for that. If this was helpful, leave a comment in the comment section. If you haven't yet, hit that like and subscribe button so you can be notified when videos drop. I will see you on the mat.